Hi, welcome back to the Create With series on my channel. I am Laura Ingalls Gunn, and this week I am really excited because we have Tiffany from Stitchin Addiction, or do you pronounce it Stitchin Addiction?
Stitchin Addiction.
Stitchin Addiction. So how did you come to that name? I love it.
Thank you. I am an English major.
Okay.
And so I had to come up with a cheesy name that rhymed.
Uh-huh.
I actually started sewing for a business maybe like 12 years ago. And that's when I originally came up with the name. I just sat there.
So you had it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sat there and brainstormed a bunch of synonyms and things that rhymed until I came up with something that I liked.
That's fun. So you have been sewing for as young as you are for almost 30 years?
Yes.
30 years? How did that start? Who influenced you or who encouraged you?
So my mom and my grandmother both sewed. My grandmother was an extremely prolific seamstress. She made many of my dresses when I was growing up. And then my mom started out making some of them. My mom is more of a perfectionist, if you can say that, than my grandmother. And so it took her longer, and then she started having kids, and so she didn't end up making very many for us as we got older. But I always admired the fact that they could make them, and I always loved it. My mom taught me to cross stitch when I was 7 or 8. That was the first skill I learned that I had to do with sewing. I don't like cross stitching.
Well, a lot of people, they don't realize that there really are different categories. Like you can sew home decor, which is wildly different from everyday clothing, to quilting is a whole different genre. So where you may have skills in one area, it doesn't always cross over to the other areas. Like I tried quilting, but it wasn't my preference. So I understand that. So you are a high school teacher by day,
Yes.
and then you offer sewing lessons to beginning seamstresses or all levels?
I offer to all levels that are interested. So, if you just want to learn, I will teach you from the ground up. I've been doing that for quite a few years. And but then also if you are wanting help with things like fitting or more fine-tuning your sewing skills, I do that as well.
One of the dresses that Tiffany shared on her Instagram account, which I will link below, as well as her YouTube channel, was the Joe March dress that you recently entered the Foundations Revealed contest. And I am a literary lover, so my first question is, how did you get into historic costuming?
Okay. I've always loved costuming since I was really young.
Okay.
But as far as actual historic costume, that's actually a really new thing that I've gotten into.
Oh, that's interesting.
So along the lines of you saying that, skills don't translate over sometimes when you're sewing. Also, when you've been sewing for 30 years like I have, you get bored with things and you want to try something new. And so I've done quilting, I've done kids' clothes, I've done my own clothes, and so historical costume was kind of a new challenge on the horizon. It was something I had thought about for a long time because I've always loved literature and I've always thought about what the characters might have worn, but I didn't really dive into it until about 2 years ago, I think.
Wow. This dress, I will put a picture up right where my hand is. It's truly a work of art. How long was your planning to creation process? Like how long did it take you to create the dress?
So I found the competition last summer and started thinking immediately because I was like, this is me. Like, this is totally me. Once Upon a Time has to do with literary character. I just have to decide which literary character I want to do. And so I started planning then. I believe I ordered the fabric in August. So I looked around for fabric, found the perfect fabric from Renaissance Fabrics, went ahead and ordered it. and then started reading and characterizing and thinking about all of that. But I already knew at that point I wanted it to have like military influences based on the fact she wished she could be in the war.
The masculine touches.
Right.
Yeah.
And she wanted to be in the war with her dad and all of those things. So I get busy and I put things off and think it's going to take me less time than it will. And so I didn't actually start sewing it until after Christmas. I started drafting the pattern on my Christmas break. And it wouldn't have been until after Christmas because I'm always busy up until Christmas finishing all my Christmas gifts to give to people.
Wow, so it was a self-drafted pattern. Yes. Oh my goodness.
And so I was running down to the wire on that one. My husband can tell you I would come home from school and drink coffee and work for probably 4, 5, 6 hours after school every night. And probably that last week and a half just to pull it all together, because when I got to the very end there's a lot of details and hand stitching and things, and so those are the things that I always underestimate. I'm like, oh yeah, I just have this and this to finish, and then I start working on it and I'm like, oh yeah, that took 4 hours instead of 2.
Yes. Yeah. So. I am guilty of that. I think time management in terms of historic costuming, it's impossible to plan because the sheer amount of detail and hand stitching and the ripping out.
Yes. Yes.
It's not, going right. It's really a truly beautiful dress, and I hope that we'll get to look at it when we take a tour of your sewing room in a little while. So Tiffany, on her YouTube channel right now, has taken this character of Jo March from Little Women, and you're creating her underpinnings, her everyday dress. It's what do you envision for this series in future episodes? I've been entranced with what you've done so far, and I can't wait for the next one.
So what I did was I reread Little Women, which was a very interesting experience because I loved it as a preteen and a teen, but I don't think I had read the whole thing since then. So you see things through a totally different lens as an adult. And I kind of divided it into sections based on different ensembles or dresses or outfits that I thought would be very defining for her during the story. So for example, the one that we were just talking about is her afternoon visiting dress when she's in her probably late teens, early 20s, and Amy is making her go out visiting. But then also I've done her teen girl dress when she was at the beginning of the book, and then the next one, which you mentioned you're excited for, is the scribbling suit.
Yes.
I want to do her scribbling suit. And what I eventually plan to have is, I think it's 7 different outfits for her wardrobe.
Oh my goodness.
And so I originally, once again, underestimated myself, thinking I can do this by summer and schedule a photo shoot and have them all shot, and start offering those designs for sale in my shop and all those things. Well, other things have gotten in the way and I haven't made any progress on it in a while. So I'm hoping to have it done hopefully within the year. But I have things planned like her morning dress when Beth passes away. I want to do an 1860s swimsuit when she takes Beth to the beach. So I have a whole lot of different outfits planned throughout the book.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. I had told Tiffany, as a side note, as a young girl, Little Women was one of my most favorite books, and my daughter is named after Beth. It just was a story that really resonated with me as a child. So that's probably why I get really excited about your videos. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Now, you mentioned your online shop.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
That's on Etsy.
Etsy.
And it's under the same name, Stitchin Addiction.
Okay, so I'll put the link down below in the description box. So you can pretty much help people realize their dress dreams from, you do Regency era, Civil War. what else can?
So I basically do Regency, and then I skip the 1830s. I haven't really done anything with the 1830s, and then 1840s through the late 1860s.
Okay.
So those are the ones I have experience with. Obviously, when I get bored, I will move on to other eras.
Yes, yeah. Later on, we are going to be taking my measurements in a corset because I have attempted to make 2 Civil War 1860 dresses, and the bodices can be a bit tricky because you really have to get proper fit.
Right.
And so I personally have been struggling with that. I think, with historic fashions, it is kind of nice to have a second person who knows what they're doing to take your measurements. My first 2 attempts, I took my own measurements. I was trying to fit myself. So I'm really excited that we're going to be able to work together because I would like to get dresses that fit. There are various events through the Dallas-Fort Worth Costumers Guild when they host various functions that I would like to have a proper fitting dress. So I'm looking forward to us working together and achieving that. And
I definitely am looking forward to that. And I can second what you said as far as the measurements. My husband takes some of mine sometimes because it's just impossible to measure yourself sometimes.
Yeah, so. And I think even when you're then creating, the first initial mock-up and muslin, and then you really need that second pair of hands to say, well, the shoulders need to come in a little bit. I think it's very rare that the average person can just make a mock-up and it fits perfectly.
Oh, no. I don't think that happens.
Yeah, it's usually around 3, at least 3 mock-ups for me. So I'm still definitely in the learning stages. So I hope to really gain some valuable skills and knowledge from Tiffany. So, I'm always fascinated to see how other people set up their sewing spaces because I always take something away that I hadn't thought of, pattern storage or sewing storage. So I'd love to take a look at your space, but I also wanted to talk about this video will actually air after JaneCon.
Oh, yes.
Which is next weekend. So in addition to Joe March, tell me about what you're making for JaneCon. It's it's like the Magpie or Doug the Dog. It's like project.
And I tend to rotate between the 2 eras.
Yeah.
So I tend to rotate. I'll do something for the mid-Victorian era and then I'll switch back to Regency. Mm-hmm. Once again, I get bored easily, so that's part of it. It keeps me challenged. But what I'm working on right now is Lizzie Bennett's walking dress. So she went walking to Netherfield when Jane got sick. And I've always thought about, okay, what is she wearing? And the more I've read about that, that was like a very independent act of hers. And I also recently learned that the reference to her hem being 6 inches deep in mud meant that she had probably pulled up her skirts while she was walking and tucked them in the waist of her petticoat like the peasants did. And so that was like an insult, more than an insult than I realized it was before. And so it just shows me a lot about her character that she was willing to do that even though she was a gentleman's daughter. She was independent enough that she was going to go do that. So I am working on that. I did the research and the characterization again like I did for Joe. And am almost done with the dress.
Oh, I'm excited. Now, when I know you rely heavily on literature, which I love, do you look at some of the theatrical productions as well? Does that influence you at all, or is it strictly literature?
So I have mostly gone with strictly literature. I used to do more with, before I got into the historical costuming, I did more with theatrical productions. So like I did a Chronicles of Narnia dress that was Lucy's from the Prince Caspian movie. And I've done multiple things like that throughout the years. But since I've really gotten into the historical costuming in the last 2 years, I've really tried to stay true to the historical elements and colors and styles and patterns and things that would have been used, as well as I like to come up with what I think they would have worn instead of what somebody else is telling me they would have worn. And so I've also done it because of that. Like, I want to think about, okay, take myself completely out of this movie, even though Pride and Prejudice, 2005, I love that movie.
Yeah.
You know, not going to dress her like that, which, by the way, that costuming is actually late 1700s.
Yeah.
It's not even Regency. But I don't really let that influence me right now. I have previously.
Yeah. Well, let's go take a peek at your sewing space.
Yes.
And some of your creations.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to my sewing space. I'm really excited to show you guys this because I had been thinking about doing a video myself on it, and then when Laura contacted me, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can show off my sewing space and she can do the filming and it'll work out perfectly. So I'm actually in the process of completely redoing it. This is a temporary storage that I have for all of the dresses that I currently have. Some of these are ones that are my personal dresses that I will keep, and then some of them are ones that are for sale in my Etsy shop and just haven't sold yet. They're just storing. And then down here is a lot of the undergarments that we use when we do the photo shoots. So there's drawers and petticoats and chemises and all of those fun things. So there's even a corded petticoat hiding out here.
Your corded petticoat is just beautiful.
Thank you.
I know I've made one myself, so it is a labor of love, to be sure.
Takes many more hours than you anticipate.
Yes.
And then over here you can see I have 3 dress forms. I use them to help with fitting when I'm making dresses for clients. And so I have 3 sizes right now. I'm hoping to continue to add to the collection. This is actually, 2 of these are actually commissions. This is a giveaway petticoat that I did at the beginning of, I believe, April. And that one is all ready to go and ship out to the girl that won it. So it's made specifically to her measurements.
Oh, beautiful details. I love the damask print.
Yes.
That's gorgeous.
I loved it too. I couldn't resist it when I found it. And then this is an mid-Victorian day dress that is in progress for an order. So as you can see, I have it partially done, but not completed.
Gorgeous
It needs
color.
the waistband and the cuffs and the skirt still. And then this is one that's for sale in my shop. It's a girls, teen girls Regency dress.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That one was actually a demo I used to make a YouTube video back in December. And so then I just listed the dress for sale after that. You can see my messy patterns. I am very bad at folding patterns, so I will pile them up there until the pile is too big, and then I will fold them all, sort them all. And then over here is, let me see, probably need to. Over here is my ironing space, and then this is where you'll see my storage space start, right underneath here. So I wrap all the different laces and trims and everything on cardboard and keep track of them that way. This basket is ones that are like partially used and I didn't put them back on the cardboard, so they need to be fixed. This is my brand new gravity fed iron that I am currently trying to figure out.
Wonderful.
So I will keep you updated on that.
Keep me updated, because they are an investment.
Right. These, I'm going to show off these for just a second. These are from my paternal grandmother.
Oh.
She made those and I always admired them as a child, and then I got them when she passed. Like I said, I don't like cross stitch, but she did.
Oh. That's wonderful.
And then this was a sampler that I made as I started it as a teenager, but it took me 10 years. Once again, I don't like cross stitch.
But you persevered and finished it, so that deserves a round of applause.
And then I use a lot of storage in this file cabinet. So I store patterns in here. So these are all my children's patterns.
Oh, that's great.
And then I have more patterns down here.
Any good seamstress, it's a side effect of the hobby.
Yes, it is. And a lot of the patterns I do for the historical costumes now are self-drafted, but if I'm making stuff for myself or for others as gifts, a lot of times I use patterns because it takes less time. And then this is more of my storage. So this is more crumbs.
Oh, beautiful. So when a person commissions a dress, you can give them several options.
Yes, generally there's options when it comes to trims, there's options in fabric, there's options in buttons. Like I did a virtual fitting online with a client last week, and she got to pick the buttons she wanted for her dress.
Oh,
while we were
that's
online.
wonderful. I love that.
And then, let's see, what else do I have? Here's some of my, I can show you guys some of the books I use to do some of my research. So there's The Rise and the Fall of the Sleeve, great book. One day I will do children's fashions, but that's a dream right now. This is a great book. This is actually reprinted from Peterson's in the 1860s. And then you can just measure them and scale them up. And that's actually how I did the Joe dress, was there was one in here. Let's see if I can find it quick. I might not marked it anymore. I'm going to take the marker off.
So that you just enlarge it to
So
fit your
that one.
measurements.
Right.
That is a great book.
Yeah. It wasn't this one, but it's something kind of like this. And then I just went in and measured the pieces and then kind of went from there, fitting my measurements. I used my individual bodice block and then... So those are some of the books that I use. Currently, I'm very into Dress in the Age of Jane Austen.
Yes.
Since I'm working on Regency stuff. So that's another great research book. And then I have a little bit of fabric here. This is the bolt fabric. I don't typically buy whole bolts. I typically buy things when I find them for good deals. So I buy from a lot of de-stash groups, a lot of end bolts, a lot of... what are those places called that take them like from the big retailers and they're going to get rid of the fabric?
The mill-end type of...
Right, like Fabric Mart. And then Farmhouse Fabrics is another one. They'll take like end of bolts from retailers and then sell them. So a lot of the stuff I buy is like one-offs. So if you see a fabric you like in my shop, it's probably only enough to make one thing.
Yes.
But I have a little bit there, and then I'll show you where I keep my other fabric
great.
storage. And then here's my machines. My serger was a high school graduation present. So that gives you an idea of how old it is.
It's a well-loved Janome.
Yes. Has many, many sewing miles on it. And still works really well. It's
Still
probably,
going strong?
Yeah, it is. It probably needs a tune-up. It's had a little bit of...
It might be the sewing fairy.
The tune-up. It's had a few little things recently, but it's a good machine. And I was not gentle on machines when I was a teenager, so for it to last that long is good. And then my Singer, I'm actually looking at upgrading to a Janome for the actual sewing machine. I just haven't taken the time to actually go out and buy one. I pretty much know which model I want and everything. This one was a gift from my husband. I had a Singer that was a home ec model, so it had almost all metal parts, and about the time we met, my Singer started biting the dust, and so he got me this one.
You know that's a keeper if they're buying you sewing machines.
Yes, he bought me books and sewing machines. Those were some of my first gifts.
Absolutely.
That was how he won my heart. And then let's see, I have more storage
Oh
in here.
my goodness! It's a seamstress's dream.
Yes.
You can never see my closet because, look, yours is even categorized by color. So many lovely options.
Yes, there are too many. I went on a fabric buying binge last year. I think that's how I dealt with the pandemic.
Yes, many of
So
us did.
There is a lot more fabric in here than there was before the pandemic.
Oh, what is this?
This is the 1840s dress that I made, the Dickens dress that was inspired by A Christmas Carol. Actually, it was originally inspired by Edgar Allan Poe. I wanted it in time for Halloween, and once again, underestimated myself.
Wow, the detail. Oh my goodness. Yes, I could imagine that details like that
Right.
take quite a bit of time.
The box pleating and the bodices in the 1840s with the way that they would V down right here are fitting is really hard because you're having to then flare back out for your hips in order to be able to get that V shape that they had. And so the fitting took me longer than I anticipated too on this one. And I'm actually going to make a second bodice for it, an 1850s bodice. I have just enough fabric and a plan for that. So that's why it's here. It needs a few, as you can see, it says fix. There's a few little things that need to be fixed on this one. And then I want to, and this is one that I'm going to keep. I offer this design if you want to commission it, but this is one I'm planning on keeping because it's great for like Christmas and that type of thing. And once things are more open after the pandemic, I'm planning on, you know, doing some vending at some different events and different things. And I would love to dress in character, of course, while I'm there.
Yes, absolutely.
And then these are the Bridgerton dresses that we just finished the photo shoot with. So they are ready to be listed for sale. So whenever I make a dress that we use for a photo shoot, I then list it as a sample at a reduced price.
Oh, I love the colors, and you definitely captured the color palette that they used in the series.
So the really fun story, and I'll eventually put this on my Instagram, behind this fabric is that, as you can see, it's not historically accurate. It is polyester. My sister and I bought this fabric to make coordinating dresses with probably 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it got stuck in my stash. She knows how to sew, but she's never really loved it. And so there was a point in time when she cleaned out most of her stuff and just was like, here, Tiff, you can have it. Use it for whatever you need it for. So it's been stuck in my stash all this time. And after we watched Bridgerton, which that's a whole nother story. She twisted my arm and got me to watch Bridgerton with her. We were like, oh my goodness, that fabric that we have is perfect. So I pulled her back out and made us dresses, and then we did a photo shoot together.
Oh,
we had so much fun.
I love it. I love it. Now, does your sister sew, or?
She does a little bit. She used to be able to make some of her dresses and some basic sewing, but it's not like her love. She doesn't really enjoy it. So now she'll do like simple things like blankets for people or things if she wants to make something, but a lot of times she will let me do the sewing. Like this year for her birthday, we have a dress. Her birthday gift is a dress that I'm making her, kind of thing.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Well, this has filled me with inspiration on how I can better organize my sewing space. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much.
So here is the Jo March afternoon visiting dress that we were talking about earlier. It is not on a dress form because I actually don't have a dress form that fits me. So this is some of the details. You have the tassels on the shoulders, which kind of looks like the military, I don't know how you say the word, epaulets?
Epaulets.
Epaulets. And then it has the cuffs. This is actually copied from a design that's in the Met. There's a green dress where they have cuffs exactly like this.
And I love the pinstriped fabric. Where did you find that?
That was a Renaissance Fabrics find.
Oh, and the color is just a glorious crimson in the details.
And then, of course, here's the skirt underneath here. It has the overskirt with the tassels on the bottom. And then, of course, the long skirt with the train. You can see it hanging out. I actually need to make a street sweeper.
Yes.
To go underneath it before I really wear it out. I've only done photos here at my house, so it's been okay, but I need to make a street sweeper so that the hem doesn't get too torn up.
That I feel so blessed to have seen this in person. It's just stunning. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.